Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. And it's finally over. Ben Roethlisberger has played what I believe will be his final game. If he comes back after that performance, and nothing against his performance, but he came out, they barely had like any passing yards in the first half. And it just looked like a guy that was done, right? They couldn't do anything on offense with him. I think they had ran Harris out too much during the regular season. But I don't want to focus on the negatives, just give a look back on the guy's career. But did you have anything you wanted to add on the game before we get into that?
No, I mean, there were so many throws, but I feel like Juju came back and was able to, and was activated and played, but I still just felt like for as highly touted as some of those draft picks and stuff have been, I feel like they're just lacking firepower with the offense.
Yeah, they were talking about how they need to extend the wide receivers and their contracts. I'm like, really? I remember a lot of drops, and like, wouldn't you just want to start over? Like, why would you be throwing extra money at these guys whenever it was pretty clear that, and I know some of this probably is just Ben is too old, but like, you can't tell me that he can't throw the ball downfield at all, you know? Otherwise, why is he out there? So, like, get open downfield. That was what Claypool was supposed to do. And then he's kind of shifted into almost like a nothing. And then Johnson with all the drops. Smith-Schuster, I mean, he was hurt most of the year. But, like, his contract's up. He signed a one-year deal, didn't he?
He did. And Claypool was, you know, the thing that was frustrating watching him play is that for his size, you watch Chase with the Bengals is comparable with his height and weight and just is blowing the top off the coverage. And Claypool has the potential to do it, and it's like everything turns into these jump ball one-on-ones where if he doesn't get a pass interference call, he's not doing anything.
Yeah, he has made some great catches in that type of coverage, but yeah, some of those games, if you watched over the weekend, there were a lot of receivers that were able to get open down the field, and like, even for as bad as the Cardinals looked, there were still a couple times where I was like, man, if only Murray could, like, you know, throw the ball accurately on some of these deep balls, they might have had a chance to get back into the game because their guys were wide open. And so then I'm like, the Steelers don't have that, though. Like, they have nothing. Their offense is painful to watch, and I saw a lot of, like, hit pieces come out about, like, how Ben, it's definitely time, like, blah, blah, blah. And some people have compared it to Brett Favre and how Brett Favre came back, but like, Brett Favre looked like he had more in the tank, and they were pushing him out to get to Aaron Rodgers. Ben, on the other hand, they did it opposite, where they were like, you just stick around as long as you would like. And I think they've suffered for it. I don't think they should have pushed him out 2 years ago, but like, when you don't give him that help, you're not bringing in, that's what was frustrating, and I know we've talked about it back whenever they weren't going after, Fournette, and some of the other like weapons they could have got on offense. If you knew that Ben was going to play for 2 more years, why are you giving him a supporting cast of like Tom Brady had with the Patriots? Like, come on. And then that's what you expect going forward, right? So like, next year, as much as Tomlin's like, they say he never has below 500, like, I just don't see it next year. Maybe I'm wrong. The defense, for all the accolades they got, and they came out strong, and I know some of us, the offense wasn't moving the ball, so they were on the field a lot, but the Chiefs just blew the doors off them. And it was something where you're not getting pressure. They did have the defensive touchdown. It was like, what, the early second quarter or late second quarter when it started to fall apart?
Yeah, I believe so.
They had the touchdown. They also had some other interceptions that were fortunate. And it was almost like, hey, you know, they're on the field a lot. They're getting these turnovers. The offense isn't doing anything. If the defense can keep playing like this, maybe they can stick around. And I tried to have hope. I told you before the game, like, maybe I had a good feeling that they could pull off the upset. And then watching it, I was like, no. It brought me back to, like, was it 2-3 years ago? It's probably even longer than that. Whenever they lost to the Jaguars. Whereas like the offense, and then they're on defense, they're just getting shredded. And it's like, all right, the offense isn't helping them out. The defense is getting shredded. You're not winning a shootout with this offense. It's time to just turn the page. And now it will be interesting to see because they went through a phase in the 90s and like the early 2000s where they had multiple quarterbacks. They were bringing in guys like Tommy Maddox from the XFL to try to kind of extend that, like build around the defense, the Ravens did the same thing for a while. We're going to build a killer defense and then hope that we can land a quarterback. They got lucky with Ben Roethlisberger. He's played there forever. But now it's the rebuild where the defense isn't going to be able to carry you through this. I honestly have a bad feeling that it's going to turn pretty rough. Unless they can get a guy like Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what his feeling is. They're still in the playoffs, so we'll probably get into that more in the offseason. But unless you can bring a big-name quarterback in, and even if you got like a lesser guy, I just don't think there's a guy out there like a Matt Stafford this year or last year with Phillip Rivers coming in late in their career that's able to say, like, hey, we're going to take a run with this team. Because, like, even with Matt Stafford this year, that team is loaded. Like, if he would have came to the Steelers instead, I think they would have been in the same situation, losing in the first round of the playoffs. And then everyone would have been talking about how Matt Stafford still can't win a playoff game. Instead,
but I feel like
the Rams did what the Steelers should have did. They brought in Von Miller. They bring in OBJ. They have all these dudes, and they're like, look, we have an all-star team out here. Win the game. Just win. They were like, we're going to kind of get you some help, but not really. We're going to kind of bring in some young rookie guys, and hopefully they pan out. And we're not going to bring you any veteran help in. Like, we're not bringing in any all-stars, Matt. Other than Fitzpatrick, which was a trade, right?
Yes.
They haven't signed anyone big. They haven't really made any moves. That was probably the last big move, right?
Yeah, but I feel like for the better part of the last 6 years or so, they've been handcuffed with their free agency. So, I mean, when you're pressed against the cap and asking guys to restructure contracts, it doesn't leave a lot of openings to pay for those big high-end free agents. Now, you were saying about guys that could potentially move the needle. I don't know why or how you justify a pro-style pocket quarterback like Roethlisberger and think that someone like a Stafford or Aaron Rodgers that are pro-style drop-back quarterbacks with the line the way that it is would do anything. I think you're better off going in the direction of a Marcus Mariota, or if you're looking at the draft, the Liberty quarterback, Malik Willis. You know, I think that you need to find someone to scramble so that whenever the pass protection breaks down, which it will, the defense has to account for them, and it can lead to some open running lanes.
I don't know at this point which direction they're going to go. I think we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. But they're still trying to rebuild that running game. So I think if you're able to get a quarterback, and I was just bringing Stafford in as like an example if Ben had retired last year, then you're trying to make a push. Like if Ben had retired and Stafford was on the team this year, would they have advanced like he was able to do with the Rams? Like, no, the Rams had such a great supporting cast for him. That's why they killed the Cardinals. The Steelers' bench had nothing. And even guys that they've brought back and tried to like talk up, like Juju, other teams didn't really want him anyway. So you're kind of like, oh, this is supposed to get me excited? That's why if Ben comes back, it'll probably be playing for another team, or he'll get the Phillip Rivers tribute where it's like, hey, we're close to the playoffs and our quarterback got hurt. Do you want to try to come back while you're healthy? Have you been working out at all? And then they try to say yes or no. So, I don't know. But his
I
career...
think, like, when you look the last couple years, it's been the running game that was an issue because the running backs weren't doing anything. And I feel like this year it flipped it on its head because they drafted Najee Harris, and then what did they do? They gave him the ball 90 times a game. It was like they were purposely trying to see if they could blow the motor on him. And to his credit, he withheld the beating this year, and
it'll be 3 years. People that fantasy draft him, it'll be worse than a McCaffrey. I have a feeling it'll be more like Saquon. You know, he came in and they did the same thing to him, really, pretty much.
But I think like the receivers didn't help where they were consistent in that short passing game and guys catching the ball, and they were using that as an extension of the run. Harris was able to run, it pulled everyone up, and then when they went to throw, it was just like the receivers dropped the easy passes that put the offense into those must pass, and they pinned their ears back and just tattoo Roethlisberger. So it was just like a no-win situation.
And that's true. That's where, if you're looking back at it, did he stay too long? Maybe. Would it have made a difference? That's the only point I'm trying to make. No. Wouldn't have made a difference. I don't think anyone coming in with this cast would have won or did better than what he did. I think the front office needs to do a much better job, or you're going to be doing some type of rebuilding where, unless you're bringing in Tom Brady, which he's not changing teams, let's be honest. But unless you're getting him or like an Aaron Rodgers that can elevate your team, you're not going to win. So he stayed he had a great career, 2 Super Bowl victories. He went to a 3rd, and they lost to the Packers. But I will say that in terms of like quarterbacks, they're going to put him in the Hall of Fame. The NFL had already talked about it when they're promoting it as such. I still think Eli Manning should be in then. I mean, Ben had more stats. He played longer. But in terms of as a franchise quarterback, I think he is the face of the Steelers and over Terry Bradshaw. And I know that might hurt some Steelers fans, but let's be honest. It's a passing league now. When Bradshaw played, it really wasn't. I mean, people remember like Lynn Swann and Stallworth. Like, they knew that the receivers were so good. I think more people might even know them than Terry Bradshaw. But maybe that's just me. But in terms of his career, what do you think? Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it'd be nuts to not put him in. It'd almost be like a Barry Bonds type snub, but he hasn't really did anything. I know they always bring up his off-the-field issues, and I got like 10 texts about it. It was weird, so I'm like, why are people like bringing up his allegations from like years ago? And so I was curious because Kobe Bryant, whenever he died like 2 years ago, I'm like, let's look at his legacy articles and see if anyone even brought up about his past. Because like every article about Ben, they bring it up. New York Times had a big print on it, and to their credit, they were the only ones that I saw in my search before the show that did the same thing for Kobe Bryant, although it wasn't as blatant. Like Ben's, they put his allegations right in the sub-headline, and Kobe, they didn't do that. It was buried like in the 8th paragraph. I'm like, they just said like Kobe's was like a legacy that was tainted or something like that. I forget what it was. I should have kept it up. But I know you're getting stuff like that. It's like, all right, is that enough to keep him out of the Hall of Fame? I don't think they will. Like, I think he's in. If the NFL's tweeting about it, they already think that he's going to get in. So I think that's how his career would have ended. People would have liked him to go out. I think John Elway set the bar so high. That's why, like, if Tom Brady would have came out with a Super Bowl victory, that would have kind of been a tip of the hat last year to, like, John Elway. Like, yeah, we won it. I'm done now. I won so many. I'm so awesome, you know? So, like, now I'm thinking if he wins again, you have to do the John Elway. I think anyone, and maybe it's just me, but I think anyone would be crazy if you had that chance to go out on top. Why would you not? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, Jordan did, didn't he? And then he came back. He probably regrets it every day. He's like, why was I so stubborn? Why didn't I just stay out on top, baby? He came out on top twice,
pretty sure
didn't
he? Pretty sure he just regrets buying NBA franchises.
Well, no, that's like a hobby now. Like you won your championships now. People are always going to forgive you when you're the owner. But, I mean, Ben hasn't had that chance. So, like, what's a better time to walk away? That's why I thought that if he could have got the win and the tie somehow left him out of the playoffs, but he could end his career on a win, I think that would have been good. And now it's like, oh yeah, I ended my year on a blowout loss. But maybe he needed that to kind of really push him out and say, so he doesn't have to think like, you know what, if they wouldn't have tired, I would have had one more chance at the playoffs. Now he firmly knows you haven't had a playoff win in years, dude. Not good. So that's it. Anything else you have for the Steelers?
No, just it was a disappointing way because the way that the game started, it seemed like if they could start to get moving with the offense, that they were going to have a shot. But it was like the longer that it played out, it was just like they never really got going. There was never that point where it was like, all right, now we're going to go.
And that's where I think getting into just, I don't even know if it's scheme. I saw some people try to throw it on Canada and stuff. It's like, it was Ben. Like, don't try to talk negative on the dude because he's retired or whatever, but he'll have his day farther removed from the playoff loss where everyone kind of looks back and they remember the good times. I know I sure will. I remember my Graham left. I don't think I have it anymore, but she had like corralled a bunch of copies of that Super Bowl paper win, and she like had one for each of us whenever she passed. Like that was one of the things we found. I was like, that's crazy. I think it was the Jerome Bettis one, the first one. So like that's a memory I always have. But now he's gone, and we'll see what comes next. The big thing I want to talk about in terms of NFL, though, that game was one of many blowouts. I hear the argument all the time. College football can't expand. Look at all the blowouts. It'll be a disaster. NFL expands. What happens? All but 2 of the games are blowouts. They even had an extra game this year in the regular season to really show who deserved to be in. And most of the time, I can't remember what the lines were, but like the Chiefs, heavy favorites, most likely they killed the Steelers. The Buccaneers, I said, they're going to kill the Eagles. They did. The 49ers, I think, did I predict that game? I didn't trust the Cowboys. I know I wrote it down, but I actually wrote my picks down, and then I couldn't find them last week. And then I didn't go back and listen to the show. But I was like, I thought that they would win that game. The Bills, of course, I picked. I didn't know they were going to kill the Patriots that bad. But like I said, that was kind of a fluke win where you have a game in the black, like the whiteout snow, where they only passed the ball like 3 times and they beat them. So I knew that wasn't going to happen. And then, of course, the Rams blowout, which I mentioned. I don't remember who I picked in that game, but they were just so star-studded that wasn't unbelievable to me. But the only other game that was close other than the 49ers win, which the 49ers win might not even have been that close. The Cowboys they had a run at the end, and then they had a chance to tie it. What did you think of the ending of that game? Because you're a coach. You have 10 seconds left, and you decide to run a quarterback draw?
I don't think that it was a design quarterback draw, though.
But I thought both of them came out and spoke in favor of it.
I mean, you can say whatever you want, but when you watch the way that play panned out, if it truly was like a design quarterback sneak, you would expect the from what I saw, it looked like the inside receivers were running pass routes. So they were looking for the ball, and as Dak's running past them, they're like, "Oh, I got to go get someone." And it didn't look like we know he's going to take off running, and we need to make sure that we're finding somebody to block to get him downfield.
I don't think they were worried about the blocking though. I think he was running past them, and they were trying to worry about lining up. And I think he ran too far. That was my perception of it. It looked like you said, they all seemed to be running routes, but I think that was kind of like a fake, but they weren't really trying to block. And I think the surprised look was because they were like, did he slide yet? Why the hell is he running so far? Doesn't he know there's only 10 seconds? Because if you watch the line, then of course the lineman and the ref ran right into him. Like they were already they had ran up in a line, like they were ready to spike the ball, and maybe that's just good coaching. But I think that they knew that was going to be, maybe it was a 2-option read where they were like, if you didn't get the ball, turn around and look, and see, like they might have had 2 keys like on the outside because they needed to get out of bounds anyway or whatever. And they were like, well, if he doesn't throw it, turn and try to get in line, because they were in line, but because he ran so far, the ref had to run all the way up and touch the ball. And then I was like, what I don't understand is you're the quarterback. I've seen this countless times, and this goes into college too. You can see the play clock ahead of you. If you see it with 1 second left, like what was it? Was it a college game or one of them where they tried to spike it and they were like, yeah, it wasn't the NFL where it's like if 3 seconds or less, they don't let you spike it. Yeah. It's like, run a play. Like, remember the old Dan Marino where he did the fake spike? What? Why are you not running a play if you were like, holy crap, that took way longer than I expected? He could yell something out like, cowboy. And then they know, crap, we need to get to the end zone. We have to run this play. Instead, everyone just kind of stands around and is like, yeah, clock ran out. What are we doing? Another Cowboys playoff game.
I think one of the other things, too, to look at is here you go. Everyone gets lined up, but I think it's knowing that the referee has to spot the ball, you hand the ball to the official. And if we've learned nothing this season, in these end-of-game management situations, you always hand the ball to the official.
I thought you always put your hand out with the ball pointing for a first down, Matt.
See, Claypool taught us the first time, and now in true Cowboy fashion, Dallas shows us that you can also lose by just getting in the way of the official, because then the official was like plowing through everyone trying to spot the ball.
Credit to him, because he knew Cowboys fans would have killed him had he just casually jogged down and was like, oh, shucks, time ran out. But that's where, like, it's a risky play call. Why are you running so far? What are you doing? Like, you're going to have to take a shot to the end zone anyway. What did he expect? Like, hey, I'm going to keep going for 5-10 more yards, here, bro. Maybe I'll be able to cut it in. Or, like, do something. Like, I don't know.
That may have even been the way he was, like, you start taking off, like, maybe I can score from here. Maybe something happens. And then it's like, nope, got to get down.
Yeah. And he played good. I just think that the Cowboys, I don't know. I didn't think they were going to win. I don't remember what I talked about on the show, though, so I don't want to sound like an idiot. But in my NFL picks for NFL.com, which I tried to look because they were like, you can win money if you pick on NFL.com. I was doing it before the show last week. I'm like, all right, I'll write my picks down. And then I couldn't find out where they were. They never emailed me or let me know. I'm assuming I lost. I think I picked the Raiders, which is the last close game. And I think I got the rest right, at least for my NFL picks, from what I wrote down anyway. I think the Bengals were the ones where they were favorites, and I thought, why are they the favorites? They have a rookie quarterback, and the Raiders are playing for something, and they had a chance, but just late in the game, couldn't get it done. I didn't even know how to feel. I think some of it was on the defense where the Bengals just had too many explosive plays that the Raiders couldn't match. And so maybe going into next week's game, they'll have that a little bit momentum from that. But I don't know. What did you think of that game? I know you're a secret Raiders fan.
It did seem like they had a little bit of momentum, but I was just surprised by how well Cincinnati played. And they're not the Bungles of old where they're just getting their heads kicked in. I think like how you saw the change in Pittsburgh when Roethlisberger came in and started to really play consistently. I think Cincinnati has that now with Burrow. And the only real gap that I see from them was one that they had initially found was some potential holes with that offensive line, and being able to have an offseason to address that They're only going to become tougher as the next couple years. Like their window to win is right now.
Yeah, and that's where, I mean, where do you think they go?
I don't know. I mean, I think it depends on how the rest of this run goes this year. They have the firepower that, honestly, I mean, they could potentially run the table. I think the team to beat is Buffalo because of how well. I mean,
because I picked them. So you're just saying that?
Well, they pitched a perfect game. No punts, no field goals, no turnovers. Every time they had the ball, they scored.
But they got to slay the giant. They got to beat Kansas City now.
They do.
Because, I mean, that game was kind of like let's get the New England, we got to kill them to really show our dominance here. We don't want them crawling back in. People are picking them. Bill Belichick, you really got to put them in their place. They could feel like, oh, thank God. And now they come out and blow it next week.
Possible. Not probable.
I don't know. I kind of like Cincinnati's chances, though, because I don't know if I'm sold on Tennessee. They're kind of like old and falling apart, kind of. And I know like Derrick Henry's not old, and I'll be keeping him for next year. And I hope he doesn't break his foot again. But I will say that like Julio Jones is like, you're supposed to come in, and instead you look like an old man out there. Like old Larry Fitzgerald was better. So I don't know what they're going to be able to do on offense. And if Cincinnati keeps bringing those explosive plays, I think on the AFC side, my prediction right now, and I hope I'm wrong, is going to be Cincinnati and Buffalo. I'm going to stick with my Buffalo pick. I think they go to the Super Bowl. And I think they're going to have a tougher road than what people expected just because they're playing Kansas City early. And so I think if they can get through Kansas City because they're on the road, and if they would somehow, if Cincinnati would win, I think they'd get that home game, and I think that would lock them up for the playoffs, or for the Super Bowl, I mean. I just think it's going to be tough for them to go on the road the next 2 weeks and win both of them. But we'll see. What are your predictions in those two games?
I think I'm still going to go with Buffalo. And then what was the other one?
Cincinnati and Tennessee.
And I think I am going to follow you up with the upset there.
Cincinnati?
Yeah.
I'm probably overreacting because I was high on the Raiders. But, I mean, I don't know. Because, like, now they're
Raiders
talking
had
about
some issues. And now
issues.
The worry.
Some? Their team was, like, controversy all year.
Well, right. And where I thought they were finding some stable footing. Like, if you want to say that it was Gruden that was the issue, then keeping the GM in place, potentially staying with the interim, removing the interim label, and letting them run with what they have, would have been the option. But Mayock got let go, and so you figure whoever they bring in as GM, they're going to want to bring their own coach in. And so you're going to look at sweeping changes within there, which now you're looking at how much of that roster is going to need flipped based off of personnel and what they're trying to do scheme-wise.
Well, I'll probably get into their coaching stuff a little bit later because I know I have Harbaugh Tracker on here, and he's one of the ones mentioned. But you're probably right. It depends on what direction they want to go, and if they even need a complete rebuild. Because the one thing I did want to mention, there were rumors that they were interested in trading for Tomlin, which I kind of would like to see, because I don't think he would need to change much on that team. But just bringing him in, having him focus on the defense, and trying to get a different quarterback for him, like, let's see how that would work out. I think it might work for both sides.
But I don't know if he would be willing to relocate to Las Vegas.
If they trade him, I don't think he has a say, right? Do coaches have non-trade or whatever trade clauses?
I think you have to be willing to go.
Well, they're going to be like, hey, you're going to be here for a rebuild, or you can take a team that was in the playoffs. Like, what other chance are you going to get at that? I mean, I guess he could be like, hey, I bet one of these other teams would want me too. But we'll see. We'll get back into the coaching stuff here, though, in a little bit. Let's get to the NFC side. So, the Rams and the Cardinals, I was kind of surprised at how bad Murray looked.
Oh, my goodness.
Kind of follows the trend, though, when you get a dual-threat quarterback like Lamar Jackson, for whatever reason, they get happy feet in the playoffs. And I know the Rams were throwing out some heavy hitters on defense with Von Miller and Aaron Donald. But they brought back J.J. Watt, and I thought he was going to make a bigger impact than he did. And it was almost like that Cardinals were a 5 seed. It was like they were the 7 seed in that game. That's how bad they looked. And they scored 11. It was almost like, I would compare it to the Georgia-Michigan game, but Michigan moved the ball on Georgia. Arizona didn't even move the ball at the beginning of that game. So it was kind of like they had no chance. Like, I was watching that game. If I was a Rams fan, my stress level would have been at 0. I knew that game was over as soon as it happened. Like, they weren't moving the ball. There wasn't like going back to the Georgia-Michigan comparison. Georgia had thrown out a couple trick plays. Michigan had went for it on 4th down. Like, there was none of that. None of that stuff earlier where you're kind of like, hey, if this goes that way, the game could flip. It was more of like, oh my gosh, are they going to do anything? And he threw that interception to a Michigan man, David Long. So congrats to him on scoring a touchdown in the playoffs. I was like, what are you even doing? Why are you throwing that ball? Like, I knew you felt the pressure. It would have been better to take the sack. Or if you can't throw it out of bounds, try to run, Try to do something. But I think it was just maybe the inexperience. So maybe they can come back, because if you're looking at the playoffs, man, I think you're seeing a lot of old quarterbacks hanging out other than Joe Burrow, maybe Josh Allen, Tannehill, maybe on the AFC side with Mahomes. But I think on the other side, you're getting like Garoppolo again, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Matt Stafford. So you kind of have an old guy side in the NFC, and then you have a younger guy side, which will probably end up being Mahomes again for his 3rd straight, 4th straight. How many times has he been in the Super Bowl in a row? So I don't know. What do you think? Any other game stood out to you? I mean, the Philadelphia Hurts also looked bad. You thought they were going to play Minshew, but they didn't put him in, did they?
They didn't put him in, and I thought, what are you waiting for? Like, he played really well the last couple weeks in relief role, and I think they're projecting the long term is going to be Hurts.
Well, he made some big plays. It's just kind of tough whenever Tampa Bay's offense is so consistent. So, anytime it felt like Philadelphia was getting some momentum, it was like the Tampa Bay just fired right back. Like, Mike Evans was making a big catch. And it's like, all right, they're not even having a bunch of their production. Weren't they missing 2 or 3 of their top guys? I know Godwin's out. But they showed that production thing with even Antonio Brown with so much production for them not playing. And Tampa Bay still didn't even miss a beat. And so I think that's tough to bid. Even if they would have went Minshew, I think they were hoping that Hurts gave him a big play. There were a couple plays that stood out where he ran for a couple and scrambled a bit to make throws downfield, but I just think in the end, they're not there. So Tampa Bay, I mean, that was the easiest pick. But going into this next round, you have the Rams at Tampa Bay. Who do you have in that one?
I'm liking the Rams.
Really?
I'm betting against your guy. Yep.
I got to go with my man Tom Brady. I feel like this game is similar to the Buffalo-Kansas City game, where whatever team comes out of here, you're probably going to have to play 2 tough games in a row. Unfortunately, this one just happened to land early. This could very easily have been the NFC Championship game. And I don't know. I think that's going to really put pressure on. Now, of course, if Tampa Bay comes out and kills them, then you're like, all right, what at LA? What can you do? What more can you do? Like, you bring in Stafford, you bring in all these guys, and you're like, this is going to be our run. We're really sorry you hit Tom Brady earlier than you expected. And you're like, couldn't anyone beat him at this point? But they have all those injuries. Maybe that it just comes around for them and it clicks. But I'm going to stick with Tampa Bay. On the other side, San Francisco playing in Green Bay, which, I mean, you guys have been getting hammered with snow. We had almost snow, so they had the delays down here and the cancellations, where I woke up and I'm like, did it snow? No. And then I saw down in Fayetteville, even further south, that they did get ice and snow, and trees were falling down. And I'm like, what the heck? I don't get anything up here. I must have been on the, which I find it funny because I randomly bring this up, but the Weather Channel constantly interrupting the game, telling me that there's going to be the snow. And I'm like, all right, come on. Stop interrupting the game. Sometimes I was getting confused. I'm like, did I accidentally trample on the remote or kick it or sit on it? Like, and I turned to the Weather Channel because, like, they're not showing me anything. It's not even like the tracker at the bottom. And every time, though, they'd show me the map, the storm. They followed the county lines perfectly. They knew where the county line was. And once you hit that county line, there was no snow past it, baby. You had to be on the other county. You're like, holy crap! Good, thank God I live on the safe side. And maybe they were right. Maybe the storm knew that the county line was going to be there, and the up and down the county lines on the east side of North Carolina didn't get any snow. So maybe that storm knew what it was doing, or at least I didn't. Someone probably did though. But I hated that. I hated that in the game where you're constantly telling me that. What was the other one? So this is the other one that really annoyed me. They interrupted the game last night to tell me that there was a gas explosion, and I thought, like, oh, all right, like that sounds pretty bad. Like, wonder where it was. Bronx, nowhere near me. New York. I'm like, you're telling me this in the middle of the football game? That has no bearing on my life. I don't know anyone there. Like, I haven't been there probably ever. I mean, I've been in New York before, but. I'm like, why are you telling me this is breaking news in the middle of the NFL game? Like, who decided that? And I'm like, do other people see the same game breaks? Maybe it's just the Raleigh news down here that I'm getting weather interrupted me. Maybe there was supposed to be a weather break, and they're like, snow's not hitting. Do the Bronx story. Tell them that it's in the Bronx after you do the break. It's like, oh my gosh. What are you doing this to me for? Why are you doing this to me? But Green Bay, I got to go with my man Aaron Rodgers and my Green Bay Packers, Matt, moving on to the next round. And you're going to have, oh man, it's going to be so emotional for me next week if it happens. Green Bay and Tom Brady once again. Does Aaron Rodgers just not run it in for the touchdown again and let Tom Brady go to another Super Bowl? We will see. But that's my prediction. What do you think in that game?
Yeah, I got to go with the Pack. Ride the hot hand.
Although it'd be funny. Remember, Tom Brady said like they went with this effing guy about Garoppolo, keeping it PG. If your kids are listening, it'd be really funny if they played San Francisco in the NFC Championship, and then he came out and said that after the game. Like, yeah, beat that effing guy. You know, they're like, oh my gosh, it was him. They knew it. But that, like I said, that was another one where San Francisco almost blew it at the end. I thought this was a Shanahan special. And now they have to go up where Green Bay is used to playing running teams in the snow. If it even is snowing. I don't know what the weather's supposed to be. But I think that I'm hoping that Aaron Rodgers just stays. There's some things where maybe they turn the corner and kind of push him out for love. I don't know. I'm going to enjoy it. I hope that either Green Bay or my man Tom Brady win the Super Bowl this year. And if it can't be them, I hope it's the Bills still. I can't remember who I picked at the beginning of the year. I knew I had the Bills playing someone. Probably my man Tom Brady, right? That sounds
probably.
Like me. That sounds like me. At least I think I had the Bills. Maybe I picked the Titans. But I thought the Bills had a chance last year, so I have a feeling that that's who I picked. That's what I have written down, and I've been texting people that I had the Bills. So we'll just pretend that is who I had for real. Because why else would I write Bills down, Matt? Bills
Because
versus I didn't have the other team down.
You just secretly want them to finally get over the hump.
I probably was sleeping, and since I own the Packers now, I probably rolled over and erased my Tampa Bay pick. I probably wrote Tom Brady, and I had to erase it. I'm like, come on. Maybe. Whoever gets through on that side. But like a Rams, San Francisco, I mean, let's just talk about the West for right now. Because that NFC West, other than the Cardinals, all three of those teams have been in the Super Bowl recently. The Seahawks, the most distant of the three, and they fired their defensive coordinator or whatever. They're trying to do some changes for Pete Carroll. But it's like, is that just a solid division compared to some of these other ones like the AFC East, or is it the North? Which one has the Buffalo in it? It's like the Dolphins and the Jets. Like, are they ever going to be in the Super Bowl in my lifetime? Probably not.
Probably not.
Who knows? I feel the same way with the Browns. Last year was their year. Didn't happen. They were so close. They had that controversial call, which, let me just say, I saw Dak Prescott complaining about the refs, and I just want to say the refs did a terrific job. I really enjoyed the NFL presentation all around. It made for a really great week. My only beef was whenever they kept showing me the news instead of the game, because I really wanted to just keep seeing more NFL stuff. So hopefully they can correct that this week. I won't get any interruptions and just see what a great job the NFL is doing. But I just wanted to call that out, Matt. The officials did a great job. If you're one of the most penalized teams, Matt, well, and you're still complaining about the flags, maybe it's your team, right?
Maybe
you shouldn't be sliding. Throw a Hail Mary at the end. I mean, you could be on a commercial. Like, that's how people know Doug Flutie. Not for Flutie Flakes, Matt. That one. Hail Mary.
Broadcasting.
The Notre Dame network? Oh, my gosh. Which, I can give you a side here. So, before I get into college football stuff, Michigan hired Notre Dame's defensive line coach, just as like an aside, because you brought up Flutie, that might be Notre Dame. And, of course, all their fans were like, oh, yeah, good riddance to him. He called an awful game in their bowl game, which I'm assuming Notre Dame lost. I don't follow their bowl games. I know they haven't won a bowl game in 30 years.
Flutie went to Boston College and not Notre Dame.
Yeah, but he does the NBC thing, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, with Heinz Ward. Heinz Ward didn't go to Notre Dame either.
He was with ABC, though.
Oh, I don't know. I know he went to Boston College. He beat Miami with that throw, didn't they?
Yes.
That was back when the Big East was good. Now those teams are in the ACC just wandering around saying, Dabo, what should we say? And they're like,
oh, please.
We don't want to expand the playoffs, son. And the Fluties are like, okay, thank you. We'll write that down. So, but Notre Dame, I see Michigan hires this guy, and all I see is negative comments about how he's garbage. I'm like, all right, well, show me some stats. So they link to how his poor recruiting has done and his 24/7 profile. He signed like all their 5 stars. I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Like, no wonder they're so bitter about this dude. Notre Dame doesn't have that many 5 stars on their team, and for this guy to have signed like 3 of them in the past couple of years, that's all of them, pretty much. So I'm like, oh, that's why I'm seeing all the neg. Because if your coach takes another job, and I guess we played at Michigan, so yeah, you're like, oh, he's going back to his alma mater. Like, you can't be really that mad at him. But I guess if he's your top recruiter, then that makes sense. And Brian Kelly, he wanted him to go to LSU with him, and he said no for whatever reason. So that has to sting. But randomly bringing that up, I know you wanted me to talk about more ACC stuff. I did see this might be a little bit of breaking news for you. And the ACC apparently is trying to get clarification in an expanded playoff format if Notre Dame counts for them in terms of payouts. Because right now, remember their stupid deal where if Notre Dame goes to the Orange Bowl or whatever, they get to keep their money and the ACC loses that bowl thing?
Yeah.
So they talked about that, how they didn't want expansion right now. Their commissioner came out against it. The rumor down here is that's the reason why. They don't want, because Notre Dame has made the playoffs 2 or 3 times already.
Yeah.
They don't want Notre Dame to make the playoff expanded and take the ACC second spot but also get all the money. Meanwhile, they watch Georgia and Alabama get two payouts. Michigan, Ohio State this year would have got 2 payouts. Penn State, Ohio State. Like, they don't want to see other conferences getting 2 payouts, but meanwhile, Notre Dame's taking theirs.
Taking a payout.
I don't know what their solution would be, though, because Notre Dame's not really in their conference anyway. So, like, when they have to get Notre Dame to kind of just be like, yeah, we'll give you a percentage of that. I mean, I guess I'd have to work that out with them. I don't know why the college football playoff would have to do with that. Right?
Maybe we're going to retro it and say
you would think, and
money.
I know this year would have been tough, as I interrupt you, that they would push more for their champion, like Pitt, to be higher ranked. I mean, it's a little bit tougher when they lose to Western Michigan or whatever team they lost to. But how about you promote your own teams instead of worrying about what Notre Dame's doing, and try to get Pitt and Clemson in to go with Notre Dame? I know they played the hybrid schedule or whatever, but like that should have really no bearing. If they're not going to be considered conference champ, they shouldn't be getting the payout. That's my opinion on it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, because Notre Dame will back out and play independent if need be. But as you're looking at some of these conferences realigning, to pull Notre Dame in with their fan base would be a huge get for any of the conferences, and you'd hate to lose them when you have them there. So I think there's something to be said with trying to one way or another just force their hand into saying yes, we're in, because it's like they're reaping the benefits of being aligned with a conference without necessarily being in a conference.
And that's why I don't know. The rumors are that the SEC is really pushing for them, which of course they are. But I'm like, what's their end game? Oklahoma and Texas are going to be in one division, most likely. And then Alabama and Georgia are going to be in the other one? Like, are they going to play pods, like I said? Because that's the only thing that makes sense, where if you're Notre Dame, the only way that I'm even considering joining the SEC is if they give me a pod of West Virginia or whatever team you take with you. And, I mean, if it's Cincinnati, whatever, I don't even know who they would want to take with them. But let's say West Virginia, because they're from the old Big East or whatever. So they take West Virginia, and then you join a pod with Kentucky and Tennessee or something. Because otherwise, you're going to join a Western division with LSU, Oklahoma, and Texas, and A&M? You'd be nuts, right? And if you force yourself into the East, maybe they push Bama back on the other side, and you're in the East with Florida and Georgia and all them, and that's a little bit easier to manage because Missouri managed it for how long. But I'm just saying, like, if you're looking at it, you're like, what would I do here? You're not going to get in the expanded playoffs if you're 7-6, Matt. Right?
No.
And you're not going to play an SEC schedule and also keep USC and the rest of the other half ACC/Big Ten schedule. Right? Because like that would be idiotic. Like, could you imagine? Maybe you keep USC and then that's it. But like, why would you be? I mean, that's going to kind of hurt recruiting, I would think. I just don't know, because I don't know what's going to happen. When meanwhile you're looking at what Lincoln Riley did, and he's trying to go to USC, saying, "Look, we had it in Oklahoma where I'd win the conference every year and possibly make the playoffs. I'm going to have the same exact thing, except now I'm not recruiting against those guys. If I can keep all my players out west out here, I can just go to the playoffs and not have to worry about recruiting as much either. I have to worry about A&M dropping bags or whatever the rumor is." So, I mean, we're way off topic of the NFL, but that's kind of where I have a feeling like if you're trying to get, and to just bring it full circle, like the NFL is expanding their playoffs. Was that first round exciting? No. I mean, you could consider maybe the Cowboys game as nail biting, but that wasn't to win. That was to take it to overtime. Same with the Raiders. They were coming down to try to take it to overtime. They didn't have a chance to win, or it wasn't like a missed field goal, or there was no nail biting games where you were like, this is gonna be the game right here. whoever catches this wins the game, or if he kicks this field goal, they win the game. There's none of that. Most of them were double-digit blowouts. I'm looking to see, they all are. Multiple touchdowns. So let college do the same thing. Because I'm going to probably forget about it because I have some other college stuff at the end here. But the Big Ten Network is rumored to be basically up for bid. Everyone kind of knows that, but it's rumored to be on the table for Apple. And I've seen people say, horrible news. This is awful news because now Apple's going to start their own sports network called like Apple Sports, and you're going to have to pay $30 for it. And I'm thinking, why? What other sports are going to be on there? Right? I don't think they're going to buy just a Big Ten network and then decide that they're going to have a sports channel of just Big Ten network. No one would buy that. I wouldn't pay $30 for that. Right?
Yes, you would.
No, because I don't even pay for a lot of other stuff anyway. So it's like, why am I paying for this? If I can watch it on over the air, I'm going to watch it. Like, I would never pay for an NFL ticket or whatever. I'll go old school. Like, I'm back on the day with like pre-internet on my phone when no one else had internet on my phone, and I'd watch the old Gamecast where the guys were like throwing the ball around. Or I was telling someone I watched baseball like that. I watched the Braves playoff games when I was in class, and they would like show you, they'd give you the first alert. They say ball and play, and you're like waiting on the edge of your seat, like, where is it in play? And then maybe a couple minutes later, because there's always like a big delay back when those cell phones first came out with internet, that it'd be like, oh, he was out. You're like, oh, damn. I was all excited for a minute that we might be scoring around here. But I'll say, if they go to Apple, I think it's a great deal. I hope they get bid up, because I was going to bring it up when we talked about the Notre Dame stuff. They think, and everyone thinks that Notre Dame is going to join the SEC. They're going to make so much more money. The Big Ten was already making more money than them. Notre Dame had a chance to join. If it was really about the money, maybe they would have just joined the Big Ten, and then really been the highest earners. You could also argue that if Notre Dame joined the Big Ten right now, no matter what the SEC gets from Texas and Oklahoma, they're still a regionalized conference. If the Big Ten pulled USC and Notre Dame, they would make more money instantly than the SEC, because they are already making more money before, because they own New York, they own Chicago. If you throw in LA and Notre Dame, holy hell, over the top. But who knows? Because that was one of the rumors where USC is possibly looking at getting out of the failing Pac-12. But in terms of TV networks, I hope Apple buys them, and I hope they just keep it on their $5 streaming app or whatever it is, Apple Plus, because it makes the most sense where if they're trying to get into streaming, they really don't have live sports. It's not like they're going to have the infrastructure where they're going to just start buying. Maybe they do buy a bunch of sports networks, and it's kind of just like not changing hands. But all the Fox ones, or no, I guess if they didn't buy the regional sports ones. I don't think Disney bought them. So you have like all those Fox or whatever. If Fox sells the Big Ten network to Apple, it directly gives them competition with ESPN, because they have the ACC set up like that, where you can buy ESPN Plus and you get all the ACC content, right? I mean, of course, you're not going to get all the big games, but Florida State, Pitt track or something, or what other sports they play, if it was like softball or something, you'd be able to watch that on demand.
But the thing with a lot of the streaming stuff that has driven me a little crazy is how you see with ESPN that they have the rights to almost all of the major bowl games. They had the rights to almost all of them, and yet there's still a pile of the games that you have to go in addition to ESPN Plus or whatever to get to the ACC network to be able to watch some of those games. It's just like there's always something else.
That's why I think it's annoying and confusing, and that's why I think if they were able to do it, because right now you don't know how annoying it can really get with the Big Ten trying to watch hockey. So I'm like, Michigan, they're one of the top teams. They had all those guys drafted in the NHL. Sometimes their games are on Big Ten Network. Sometimes they're on Big Ten Plus, which is kind of like the streaming thing. Who knows? And then sometimes they're on the regional Michigan website. Like, they're just streamed on the website itself. Like, you go to, like, Michigan sports website, and they're just showing you the hockey game. But I'm like, I don't care about any of those three. I mean, I guess if you're paying, like, for Dish TV or whatever, if it's on the regular Big Ten, you can watch it over, like, with your cable or whatever. Any of the other ones you can't watch anyway. So who cares? If you can combine all three of them and put them on Apple TV Plus, like, I know most of the time Michigan football, except for the one contract game a year where they're on Big Ten, they're going to be on either ESPN or Fox or ABC, whichever, depends if it's a night game or whatever. Like, they're almost never going to not be on. And so, same with, like, basketball. If it's a big game, they're going to be on. Like, I think even tonight it was on ESPN. So I know where to, like, check and say, like, all right, they're playing Maryland. That's probably going to be on ESPN. If they're playing Nebraska, I'll know to, like, just tune in to Apple TV. And so that's what I want. I want one streaming thing. It kind of works out for me. Like, I stream all the ESPN stuff through the ESPN app. So, like, if I type in Pitt, I can see all the Pitt games that I want. For the Big Ten, you can't really do that. So you might be frustrated by Matt, but it could be worse. Trust me. You're like, it just says Big Ten. How am I supposed to know which one I'm supposed to be looking at here? And then you can't find it, and you miss the first period, and you're like, what the hell? So that's all I want. Put it on there, and then maybe they could start showing some other stuff like hockey or whatever, but I don't think it's going to be the doom prediction like people say. Giving the rights to ESPN and making it worse is only going to be worse, because I don't think that if the Big Ten signs with ESPN, they're going to immediately stop promoting the SEC. I think it will just be kind of forgotten like the ACC, where they're just like, oh yeah, sign into our $5 app, and it might be on there. You're like, oh, okay. Hulu has live sports too. And I think that's kind of what Apple's doing, where I think you can watch the streaming apps unless you're trying to do the cable ones, because they also have their cable. And I think people are getting confused. But there are a level of college football games on there that you do not have to pay extra for. So as long as you have the cheap Hulu plan or like the Disney bundle, whatever it is, you can watch those games. Now, if you're trying to watch like a bigger game that's on Fox Sports or something, then of course, yeah, you kind of have to have the other bundle. So if Apple can just kind of do that, it'll work. I don't know how sustainable it's going to be for any of these conferences, but the conference network, just put everything in one place so that I know. That's all I ask. We've already been talking about college, and we talked about the Raiders gig a little bit. I had on here the Harbaugh tracker. There's been rumors both sides. I'm not really sure on, like, I don't care either way. People are asking me, like, every day, are you nervous about Harbaugh? It's like, no, I really don't care. Like, I honestly have no feelings either way. Was I excited he beat Ohio State? Yeah, that was one time. Like, they're thinking like it's a monumental thing where it's like, oh, well, he's doing it all the time. He's not. He did it one time. He won the Big Ten once. James Franklin did the exact same thing. You know? So, like, if James Franklin can do it, I'm kind of surprised it took Harbaugh this long. Maybe he should have did it in 2016. He would have the same results, beat Ohio State, make the playoffs, do whatever. But, like, a lot of the rumors hinge on the NIL. And so if Michigan doesn't go all in, like Ohio State's already bragging about how they're going to have one of the biggest NIL funds, if not the biggest. You already have A&M doing it. If Michigan doesn't do it, if they just say like, hey, we're not going to care, then as a fan, I think you kind of have to just check out, right? I think you need to see that investment in your program. Now, whether Harbaugh wants to be there or not, I don't think it will matter, honestly. I think Michigan's going to be able to pay for a coach if they want to, and they're going to be able to get those deals. But I think the recruiting is number one. They recruited well before Harbaugh. They'll recruit well after him if they want to. So getting in a coach that you can say, like, look, we're going to have the talent. It's going to be here. The one thing that does annoy me, it's kind of like when Beeline left Michigan basketball, where it was kind of like, hey, why did you wait until after the NBA draft when all the other coaches were kind of signed back up and you kind of screwed us? Now, luckily they got Juwan Howard. I know they had issues with COVID this year. They beat Maryland tonight. I don't know if they're going to be able to get back on track. There were games where they barely had anyone dressed for like the past month. It's been crazy. If you watch their basketball game, they had games against Michigan State canceled, Purdue, where they don't even know if they're going to be able to make them up because of how many guys they had out for so long. So I don't know how this year's going to go, but I'll give him a pass because you can't really plan around the COVID stuff. I mean, what can you do? Every state's different.
Yeah.
Michigan just seems to be worse. So I don't think you can be mad at Juwan Howard for the way this year's gone, especially after last year. They were almost in the Final Four. So that hire luckily landed in their lap where they had an alum ready to go. I don't think they have that. I've seen people advocate for just go ahead and elevate Josh Gaddis. And I'm like, he has no experience. But if you're going to do that, then please tell me that the NIL stuff is in place. Because I want to see Michigan continue to recruit as a top 10 program. Because if the Gaddis experiment doesn't work out, you don't want to start falling off in recruiting and lose, because this is a valuable time right now. Just beat Ohio State. I mean, Ryan Day passed on Joe Burrow. We don't know how good of an evaluator he is at quarterback, you know? I saw a Joker article where they were saying about how the Bears were really lucked out getting Justin Fields, and I'm like, I'll revisit this in 5 years, you know? Just like all the other Ohio State quarterbacks. And they were like, they were calling out the Panthers because they went with Sam Darnold over him. And I'm like, yeah, Sam Darnold's not that good. But I don't think Justin Fields is everything either. So we'll see how it works out for him. But going back, you don't know how good of a talent evaluator he is. So this is a time for Michigan to really buckle down. Harbaugh, if you want to go to the NFL, just go to the NFL. Why are you stringing it out? Why are you taking recruits to the hockey game over the weekend? Are you waiting for a job? And maybe it's like I said last year. Maybe he doesn't actually get an offer, Matt. Because I've been thinking about it. Every big game, the knock on him is that you can't win the big game, right? He finally beats Ohio State. He struggled in the NFC Championship game. They blew it a couple times with the Niners. Finally gets to the Super Bowl. They come out flat. Finally gets to the playoffs. This year comes out flat. And it's like, all right, if you're the Cowboys, like for instance, and you watch your team play in the playoffs where they were coming in and they were going to win, and you were like, oh man, we're so close. We have the talent. We need a coach that can win the big game. You're not hiring Jim Harbaugh, right? So like, if you're the Raiders where you're like, hey, we played really good and we almost won in the playoffs when we weren't even expected to make it. We were expected to fall apart. And you're like, we need a guy that can just get us to the next level. Is it really Jim Harbaugh? And I'm asking honestly. Like, I don't know.
Well, and is this a move by his agent to say you're considering it to try to leverage another 1 year deal from Michigan?
I think that's what drives everyone nuts is he doesn't really have an agent. So everyone's saying that, oh, he knows. No one knows. I've even seen his trusted advisor that came out and said last time that he was staying. This time he said, like, he has no idea. Like, there's no offer. Michigan might not even have offered him. Because, like, he took a pay cut last year. I heard one rumor where they gave him a contract, like an updated contract with better terms now, and he has it. And then I've also heard that was fake. Maybe he doesn't have a new offer. It's like if you're Michigan and you're like playing this game of chicken where it's like, we're not going to give you a new offer until you get an NFL offer. And then the Raiders are instantly naming guys, like they're ready to interview the Patriots linebackers coach. They're ready to trade for Mike Tomlin. It's like, hey, I'm Jim Harbaugh, and I've been hearing from all these other sports guys that they were going to hire me. Right? Just like last year, the Jets were going to hire him. And then he even said, like, this year, well, it's a lot better to be hearing more positive things or whatever he said. But I'm like, at some point, I think you got to be like, you're Andy Reid, right? Win the Big Ten. If he was winning like 3 Big Ten championships in a row and losing the playoffs because of like recruiting or something, where every year he lost Alabama or Georgia that just have more talent, and they were like blowouts or whatever, I could say like, all right, yeah, he's tired of this. He wants to go to a level playing field. I get it. But it's like, all right, you beat Ohio State that recruited on the same level as those teams. But in terms of like planning and game prep and bowl games, like these are the games that like people are going to compare about with the NFL, where it's like, hey, how's his bowl prep? That's kind of like the NFL playoff predictor. Oh, his team always comes out flat. It's like, all right, what about the playoffs? Flat. Ohio State, most of the time flat. 5 times flat, except for maybe 1 or 2, and they still lost anyway. So then this year they come out and finally put everything together. How do we know that he has an NFL offer? That's all I'm saying. And that's just I'm trying to be down the middle as possible. Because if he comes back, great. I think he's building great stuff in Michigan. You're starting to get more dynamic offensive players. You're seeing more of his guys in the NFL. I sent you the numbers because I was going to bring this up because I thought maybe he'd be hired away at this point. But the numbers right now were like Michigan's 3rd in terms of players in the playoffs. Before Harbaugh got here, they were much lower on that list, and the players playing in the playoffs were like Tom Brady. And that was it. Like a bunch of old guys from like that many years ago. Now you have guys like Harbaugh's David Long, or at least he coached when he was there. I don't know if he was a Brady Coke recruit, but getting interceptions, 4 touchdowns on the defensive side. You had like Devin Bush playing. A lot of the younger guys that are actually playing in key positions. Because didn't Devin Bush have the interception this week too? I think he did. The one TJ Watt tipped off. So you're seeing a lot of Michigan guys make impact in the games. And now they're, behind Alabama and LSU, they're 3rd overall. Someone joked that if the Saints had made it, Ohio State would have been number 1 because they only draft Buckeyes. But maybe that's why they didn't make the playoffs, Pat. Haven't been listening to my insights into the league, but that's all I have. What are your thoughts on it? Do you think he has an offer?
I don't know. I think when you look at the way that coaches are being cycled in and out, unless you were going to a place where you felt like you could win immediately, and I would say the only reason he would go back would be to win a Super Bowl. I feel like, I don't know of the teams that are looking for a coach right now, there's a situation where he can step in and kind of immediately grab the attention of people.
And the teams that are like really seem like they're really interested are like teams that are far away, like I had mentioned, like the Jets, now the Giants, where he comes in with like a Daniel Jones or whatever, but like they've not been close. Like the pro style teams, like that are run first, like the 49ers, they're not going to hire him back. Like the Rams maybe, but like they're not going to hire him. They're making their own run. Tom Brady, could you imagine if he just randomly went and coached Tom Brady? Like that's not going to happen. So you're right. There needs to be a situation like where the only team I could see, if I'm being honest, and this would be like a really weird, bizarro world for me. If the Steelers traded Tomlin and then brought in Harbaugh, could you imagine if both Harbaughs were in the same division and they were like, yeah, we want to be a run first because we're going to be breaking in a new quarterback? I could see that be a situation where he's like, yeah, I'm leaving Michigan. And I think that would work out kind of surprisingly for all parties. Tomlin goes to the Raiders, can compete right away. Harbaugh can come in with Najee Harris and bring back the running game that they've struggled with a focus on defense. The one thing that gets me is like he kept Don Brown for too long. He seems to be slow to make adjustments on some of those things. But getting the team prepared and like blowing out lesser talented teams, he's always good at. But at some point, every coach that recruits that well gets to that level, right? I mean, Ohio State still has its random upsets. Michigan still has their random upsets. You still got to recruit at that high level. If Michigan brought in like an NIL superpower to replace Harbaugh, I think a lot of people would look back fondly and say, like, look what he put in place. But if he were to go to the NFL because that's where he wants to be, and recruiting can get another uptick, why not? Why not? It's not like he's throwing out these game plans and upsetting teams that are highly ranked, right? How many upsets has he pulled as a coach at Michigan? Not many. Not many. That's not a slam. That's just realistic.
Well,
like at some point in college, you need to be able to get your guys pumped up where you're more talented. They might be higher ranked than you, but why are you getting killed, you know?
Yeah. But I do think, it comes off that he does really like Michigan and does care about the university. So I could see him wanting to stay longer on campus just because of ties to the university too.
And I'm like I said, I'm all for it. I think he could get them to that next level. It's just going to be like, why is it taking you 4 years to get younger coaches in there that can help recruiting? You know? And then like even like just the rumors of him telling recruits like that he might take an NFL job. It's like, all right, we get it, man. But like, why are you telling recruits that? You don't have to do that. No one else is doing that. Like there's guys like Lincoln Riley that are out there recruiting trips right away, knowing that they're interested in or going to take another job.
But I think it matters now in a transfer portal era where you have so many coaches that, like Todd Graham, that for years could talk out of both sides of their mouth. And
he's gone now. Did you know that?
I did know that. And
you didn't text me.
Because I was waiting to see if June Jones actually goes back to Hawaii.
He's interested.
He's pushing hard to go back.
How old is he now? He has to be old, but Nick Saban's old, so what do I know?
He's almost 70.
Yeah.
He's like, I built it back up before, I'll do it again. But, you know, you look at guys like Graham that he could pretty much just do whatever he wanted and there weren't repercussions for it. Well, now there's a increased motivation for coaches to build better relationships with players and do right by those guys, because now you can say, I'm going to commit to whatever school, and then you know you have that opportunity a year or two down the road that a player gets into the portal. If you're honest with them about your intentions, you could always end up going back to that school with that coach.
That's true. And so I do like him doing that. And I think hopefully that helps build the brand where it's like you're coming to Michigan, and then players like Devin Bush didn't say he went to Michigan at the game, like the intros, and that annoys some people. But it's like when you're hearing it from a bunch of other guys on the playoffs, because there's like 20-something players playing in the games, like, yeah, they're going to know Tom Brady went to Michigan. And maybe this is a little bit cynical of me, but I'm kind of worried that Harbaugh's going to break J.J. McCarthy, Michigan's like quarterback that really played well against Georgia. Because I've seen it happen where he kind of comes in and is like, hey, stop throwing the ball in that situation. Stop throwing the ball. Stop running the ball. You could get hurt. And I think he gets in these guys' heads, like Shea Patterson and like even John O'Corn, like going back, like the guys that didn't have that talent, but you need a little bit more positive reinforcement that when you saw them play, they weren't playing confident. People blamed it on injuries that they had at other places. Maybe that's true. But like, isn't it the head coach's job to get these guys pumped up and believe that they're able to make throws? I just haven't seen it. Like, this is the first year where he's coming in as a backup, and I've seen the same thing happen with McCaffrey, where he came in off the bench behind Shea Patterson. He looked like he was playing lights out, and of course he ended up getting hurt, so we'll never know. And then he transferred and no one wanted him. So then I'm like, maybe that was just some Harbaugh magic where he looked good. I don't know. So I'm kind of like, where's it going to be? Is it going to be Cade again if he's going to transfer? Is it JJ? And if JJ gets hurt, who's ready? Because last year we saw what happens whenever the quarterback isn't set. Now everyone knows he has a talented quarterback room. Can he manage it? And if he just leaves and someone comes in and turns him into the next Joe Burrow and they win the national championship one year, I'd be kind of like, oh, not surprised, you know? He looked like he was going to be awesome. But I think you have to have a coach that can really get that out of you. I don't know if that's Harbaugh, maybe because of his NFL background. So we'll see what happens. I'm 50-50. I really don't care either way. I think I'll be excited for Michigan no matter what. I don't think Harbaugh would go to a team I cheer for unless like it ends up being the Steelers because they trade Mike Tomlin. Which wouldn't be the craziest thing, Matt. The craziest scenario I've said on the show. I only had one more topic. The Big 12, they're planning for 2 divisions right now, which, as everyone knows, they're expanding. I don't know. Is it this year or is it next year? I can't remember. I think it depended on BYU getting out of contracts or something. I think it's next year. but they're going to play their divisions with Texas and Oklahoma. I would assume they're going to do the smart thing and split them up so that when they go to the SEC, the divisions stay the same. But who am I? I mean, I've seen dumber things happen because maybe they do it on purpose where they're both in the same division so that they can't have an all SEC Big 12 championship game. Also a smart move. And I would say that right out. Like, hey, here are our divisions. Whenever they leave, we're flipping it. But we definitely did not want a Texas-Oklahoma Big 12 championship game. So we're going to avoid that by putting them in the same division. I think a lot of people would be like, all right, that's a smart move. Like, we'll flip Oklahoma State or someone, after that happens. And so I kind of want to see what they end up being. I kind of hope they go that route where they're together, just so that. I'm also worried about, like, the travel. I think they have to put the East teams, UCF, West Virginia, and Cincinnati in the same block with maybe, like, an Iowa State, Kansas State. That's kind of a weak division, but maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know what else they can do. I mean, you can split up some of those northern teams and let you throw Houston back in with UCF, try to keep some of those rivalries going. But I'm interested to see how they put it out because it's going to end up being 6-6. For now, they're going to do 7-7. But that's that's my final bell. That's the only thing I had. Do you have any thoughts on it?
I mean, not really, because they're on their way out. So I think it would be the smart move to keep them line together. Or you just say every year everyone hypes up Texas and they end up sub 500 anyhow. So what difference does it make? And let Baylor knock them out or whoever be that higher seed.
And that's where maybe they have that. I would think the other division is going to be. I think the problem right now is Oklahoma's probably going to come out one of the divisions. And I just don't think you really want Texas being in the other one. And so maybe you throw them together with Baylor, or for now, maybe you throw Baylor a bone and you put Texas and Oklahoma in a division with like Texas Tech, Houston, BYU, and a couple other ones and try to keep Baylor happy with like Oklahoma State on the other side so that they can kind of match up. But I don't know, maybe Oklahoma State thinks that they can overtake them again. We'll have to wait and see. But I'm kind of always secretly hoping that West Virginia can kind of find its path and not get left behind. I would really like for them to join back up with Pitt. If Notre Dame joined the ACC, for me, I think the only way I'd be happy is if West Virginia went with them. Then I wouldn't care. You'd have like the Big East division and then the ACC division. I think that that's honestly what they should do. And even call it the East and the West, even though it makes zero sense. Or they could even do it weird and make one the East and one the South, which would be funny to me. But it's more realistic, right? Other than Miami, in that East one, they would have that. And then I think it kind of gives them a power where they sit the schools down and they say, Miami and Notre Dame, get your heads out of your ass and start competing because we need someone to play power balance to Clemson and Florida State, you idiots. Like, you can't always lose the championship game to these guys. And then the team that can't win is Pitt. And then Pitt's in there in the back like, yeah, we did win. And they're like, yeah, you guys. And so like that, I could see that, and I think that would be a really great conference. I don't know what the Big Ten would do. And at that point, I really don't care. Because like I honestly have a weird feeling that they're going to merge with the Pac-12. I've been saying that for years. And if they do, I think Notre Dame joins them just because of Stanford and USC and all that. And if they're like on Apple TV and they work out some with NBC, I think they could be like this weird superpower conference that kind of just like suffocates the SEC and keeps them in the South. And who knows with their alliance, maybe the ACC's part of it. And then you just have one like big conference versus like the America Conference. They can't call it that because obvious reasons, because people would think less of it. But, and that's not a joke against America. That's a joke against the American Conference. The SEC then, like, where else would they go? Right? They'd have to just take the Big 12 rest of their teams, and none of them move the needle. None of them move the needle. I mean, other than the two that are taken. And that's not a slap at like West Virginia or whatever, but I'm hoping that they do join the good guys. And like, I don't hate the ACC. I hope they succeed because I don't want them to start joining. If they do a half split and Clemson and Florida State somehow join the SEC, I think it's worse for football. Like, there's no way Florida State or Clemson go into there, that conference with like a division with Georgia and all them, and keep their status as like power top schools. They just don't. I would say the same thing for like even any school. I think you're really just going to end up getting beat up, and I think Alabama would suffer as well. But whoever would win that conference then would be in the championship and probably win the national championship. So it would kind of kill college football anyway, until they just kind of have one NFL light conference, which I don't think people are going to be interested in. I mean, we saw the ratings this year. They went down. They knew the ratings were going to suck, and yet they still did it. They could have not did that. They could have had Michigan play Cincinnati and just said, like, hey, we know the championship game might be a blowout. Ended up being a blowout anyway, so it didn't matter. But at least they would have had higher ratings. That's my final bell. You have anything else for the show?
I have one last thing. Here's your trivia thing for the evening. Do you know what Tony Romo's record was in his 6 seasons as a starter in the playoffs?
Is he like 0-1?
He was 1-3 his first 6 seasons in the postseason. Do you know what Dak Prescott's record is as quarterback in the playoffs? 1-3.
I'll say the same.
He is the same. So for people saying Dak Prescott's so much better than Tony Romo, they're the same.
Well, to be fair, put an asterisk because Tony Romo dropped that snap where he shouldn't have been out there holding anyway. Matt, could have been 2-2. Was that his first 6 years? I don't know where you're getting that.
So, interesting tidbit.
I mean, I really hate the Cowboys. I've been saying I don't like the Niners because I don't like their management. But I will say, the Cowboys, man, why? What are you doing? Them losing was just fitting. And they've tried to bring that back that it was a rivalry game from 1995, Matt. I'm like, I remember that rivalry. So I grew up. My man Steve Young was in there slinging the ball before he had 100 concussions. So now he's on Monday Night Football. You never know what he's going to say.
Brett Favre just training, running around Green Bay naked.
Yeah, remember that? Oh, my God. This is crazy. All right. Well, we'll see you next week. Hopefully we get some big football games this weekend. Make sure you're cheering for my man Tom Brady. You're not going to get to watch him that much longer. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.